The following presentation was recorded live in Cincinnati, Ohio for CALLERLAB's 25th Annual Convention. This is tape 26, CDP Interest Session.
Glad you're all here. My name is Calvin Campbell. I'm the chairman for the Community Dance Program Committee, and this session will be on new markets for the Community Dance Program. I changed what we were going to do. It still fits the description, but you'll notice that the description not necessarily fit the current mission statement for the Community Dance Program, for particularly the part I'm going to do. The mission changed as if it's today in the meeting, and I'm going to give you an example of what we're talking about. The three gentlemen that are up here, Bob is going to have to sit here in the middle and listen to this, but when I started in square dancing, I was in college. And I called in college and called for an exhibition team and called for a college club. And in the process, I got to know Mrs. Lloyd Shaw. And I was invited, along with several other young, wet behind the ear kids, to the Lloyd Shaw Fellowship. And this was where I walked in the door, and there was Bob Howell, Don Armstrong, Bob Osgood, Ellen and Dina Fresh, and a number of other people that are quite famous names in history. There were two or three of these people that took me underneath their wing as being young kids, absolutely, totally terrified to death. And Bob was one. He taught us how to play games. He taught us how to sing as well as how to dance. Probably the two people in my dance career that have been most influential, I would have to say that Mrs. Shaw was first, but I'm going to have to tell you that Bob Howell was second. Okay? So I want you to know how highly that I regard this gentleman as being one of my mentors. I think sometimes he doesn't feel that he was very proud of that. But he's truly one of my mentors. George Rollow, I met about 4 years ago, George? Yeah, and we suddenly discovered that we thought a lot similarly about dancing. He became a part of the CDP committee, and we've had many, many telephone calls and very, very genuine conversations. What we're going to talk about to you today is not material that is new markets to us, but we feel it may be new markets to you folks and something that you might want to explore. George is going to speak about a program that he has in San Antonio and the organization that he works with and the group that he works with. Bob is going to be talking about something in this area. He lives very close to here, and a program that he's been running for 40 years. And I'm going to finish up with talking to you a little bit about what is going to happen in terms of the area that I cover, which is mostly beginner parties, and maybe different beginner parties than you're doing. We're going to take about an hour to cover it, about 20 minutes each. Guys, hear that? About 20 minutes each, and then we're going to try and leave 20 to 25 minutes for comments from the floor and for questions. If you have any comment from the floor, will you please come and get this mic? And could we have a volunteer mic carrier? Okay. She'll be the volunteer mic carrier, and all questions and all answers should go through this mic so that they can go on the tape. As much as possible, try and describe things with the idea in mind that the listener on these tapes hasn't got a clue of what we're doing, and will need enough reference to be able to survive with only the tape. And believe me, I've listened to a lot of these tapes, and oftentimes that is not true. With that in mind, I'm going to turn this over first to George, then to Bob, and then back to me. Okay, George?
We'll get Bob tangled up in the wire here first. What we have in San Antonio is, at one time, a square dancer came and asked me if I would do a Contra workshop for an organization called Oasis. And Oasis is older adult, wait a minute here. Yeah, Fooey. Fooey, that's what you like, Fooey. It's in this thing here. I'll just have to find it. Older Adult Service and Information System. Now that system is sponsored by the May Company of Department Stores. And the group itself is free to older adults, 55 and over. And it's pretty much nationwide. So the organization exists in other cities also, usually where there are May department stores. It's also sponsored by the City Recreation Department and the Santa Rosa Healthcare System. So they get a lot of information and services that way, and they have most everything from beginning guitar picking all the way to astronomy and whatever, and they take trips. So they asked me to do a Contra workshop, which I did, and we had 14 people there, one man and the rest of them women. Okay? So they felt it was successful enough, so I went and did a second one, and with the second one I added a few line dances in with it. And then they wanted another one, and we changed the name of it to Classic Country Dancing, and included squares in it. That third bunch, there was about 40 people by the end. They didn't want to quit dancing, so they took our 8 weeks course and got the Oasis organization to allow us to extend it three more sessions. So we took that, and at the end of the 11th one, they asked me, is there any way we can keep dancing? So I told them, okay, but I can't do it for you. I'm willing to do it, but you need to go and find us a place to dance. They found 4 of them. Okay? So we chose the one we wanted, which was by vote. We chose this. A 100-year-old building with a wooden dance floor that was suspended on pilings so that it gave beautiful dance floor, but in an unair-conditioned building. Okay? We started out with about 32 people that moved from the original place over there, and they wanted to continue dancing once a week, every week, so on Friday morning between 10 and noon, we would get together and dance. They built it up because I told them I couldn't afford to do it if they didn't have enough people. So they built it up to now where we have taught about 200 to 250 people, of which we have 60 to 70 of them come every Friday, and the hall isn't big enough that if all of them came, we would really be scratching for a place to dance because it would be crowded. Okay? And off of that, we have gotten 5 other groups, 2 more that are open, and 3 that are closed because they're in other in the retirement homes that have locked gates, guards on the gates, and that sort of thing. So those are limited. But as far as the success of the program, it's really running beautifully. As far as getting people, if you can find somebody in some of these organizations and get a group of them to give a bad time to the organizers, you can probably get them to go ahead and sponsor something like this so that you can get a foot in the door. Oasis in San Antonio 3 years ago had 5,000 people in it. Right now it's probably got closer to 8,000. So there's a lot of room there, a lot of people that can be, that might take on this type of a program. We do a lot of, quite a few line dances. We do circles. We do almost the complete program. I haven't done all that many trios, but as far as the rest of the program, the funny thing about this bunch, they prefer to do their square dancing in the big circle because nobody wants to sit out. Most of them dance for the full 2 hours, and they stay with the program, and they get real upset if they're the one that might be left out of the dancing. Okay? So that may be something that that when you get a program like this, you might want to be careful about making sure that everybody that wants to dance can. Okay? A lot of times nowadays you get into square dancing, there's an awful lot of people that sit out. On our Friday morning bunch, very few people sit out, and most of the ones that do have trouble with their back, or they're wounded, and they come and they want to be with the people anyhow, so they come, but they sit out. And we understand all that. We don't require that they dance every dance. It's that they want to that bad. Okay, and it's a total delight to be a dance leader, and everybody wants to dance. It's just a great feeling. Okay. What else did I want to cover? We don't require partners, and we find generally that people who want to dance will make adjustments for it. So they'll dance the other part just to be able to dance. I think that's pretty much, unless you've got some questions later on that you might want to ask. I think that covers what I've got.
Well, go ahead.
No, he still has 11 more minutes.
I'll take those 11 after you finish yours. You want to ask a question now?
One, two.
Okay, the people that dance with you on Fridays, do you have an even mix of sex, or are they mostly women?
No, they're mostly women. In fact, that's a good point. It was something I did want to cover. We had one morning. We sometimes get strangers that come in and want to check us out and see what we're doing and all this kind of good stuff. One morning, a lady came in and she went by the place where we take the money and do all of the business and everything. And she walked by and into the dance hall, and she turned around and came out. She said, "There's too many men here. This is a square dance. I'm not staying." And she left. Okay, so no, it is balanced the other way, but the normal ratio we've got is about one man for every 10 women. But they all understand that they're all there for fun, and there's none of this other noise that goes on at some of the dances, because we've only had one instance where somebody came in and was attempting to make out with all the ladies, and I asked him not to do that, and he had a choice: either don't do it or don't come, and he's chosen not to come, which I think is a better idea for us. Anything else?
Yes, sir. My name is Chuck Hicks. I had two questions. The first one, you said that when you do squares, primarily you do squares in a circle. Are you talking about what we call in North Carolina Appalachian, or are you talking about concentric circles?
We're talking about concentric circles, one couple facing another, so that they could pass through and go around the ring. And they seem to prefer that because there's less chance of them to to have to sit out, and if we didn't have complete squares, 3 couples might have to sit out, and you don't have that with that. We did it the other day where we had an extra couple, and they would dance every other time as they went through, and they found that to be a challenge and fun to do. Okay.
Second question: how do you handle the fact that you've got preponderance of women when you're doing the dances? Do they adjust to the fact that there's 3 women maybe in that group of 4?
What we do generally in the square part of it, we use A's and B's instead of male female, like our amigo over here. He seems to do that too, and it works very well because they will adjust. For instance, a B has a left hand free, the A has, and so we can chain the A's, or we can do whatever is necessary. We can do right and left throughs that way, and it takes the gender part out of it and makes it more fun for all of them.
George, you also have dances that are any sex. Is that correct? Where you can, doesn't make any difference whether you have men or women, whichever.
Yeah, it doesn't make any difference. I think you were doing the Kingston Flyer earlier.
Yeah.
We do that with line A and line B.
Sure.
And we don't pay any attention to whether the man is in the wrong line or not.
Correct.
And it works very well. We enjoy doing that. And I say we. I'd like for you to all know Kathleen back there, because she's about a good half of this program, just by doing all the stuff that I don't have to worry about when I'm doing the teaching and all that other jazz. And she usually dances in the back so that when the line dance turns around, she'll be to where they can see her and the dance goes on. Okay? Anything else? Bob, you're probably going to get this anyway.
That's all right.
He still has 6 more minutes. I'm tying them, that's for sure. Well done. No, that's very interesting. I like everything but one. I put out a questionnaire not too long ago, and the one word that the seniors all objected was, the one word they objected to was older adults. Isn't that funny? Well, that's right. Older than what was the question? Yeah. No, and I just give this to you because it hit me within the past month, possibly. The word older is still frowned upon. And, of course, I keep using things like, I'm going to do many things. I'm going to empty that garage and record all my records and all when I get older. And when I have some time to do some of those things, but it's just to insert that. I like everything you said, except I guess that one word, and I would have accepted it a month ago, but right now it makes me think. I guess I'm going to have to come up with another term. That's all.
It happens to be part of their name.
That's part of their name. Yeah. You're chronologically disadvantaged. That's all. Yeah. That's that challenged. Oh, challenged. All right. No. I first and foremost, well, I got so many little notes down. The one comment that Les Henkel had made there, I just call almost all my dancing as non-sectarian. And they wonder why. And it is true that I think you're going to find that in working with your community dance program, I have found in the last 20 or 30 years that it has always been non-sectarian. I've tried to use as little sexual identification as I possibly can. I tell people that come into my regular square dance classes that this is a couple activity. I tell them that right off the bat so that there's no problems coming from that. One of the worst ones I ever had was a woman that brought her husband and her sister. And they went through the class and then went on into a square dance class, actually. And well, this sister-in-law or sister grabbed some woman at a dance one night at a CTV dance, or CPT. What's that? CDP. I'll get there yet. CDP dance, and hung on to this guy, and this guy's wife was sitting over there smoking, and after the third tip, he finally had intestinal fortitude enough to tell her that his wife was over there. See, she'd gone through the class and had learned how to dance, and found herself a partner and was not about to give them up. So we run into many problems in this program. We really do. It's difficult. Had I think one of the best outs I ever heard of. This goes back at least 45 years. Anyhow, I had a bus trip. This bus trip came along, and there were, I think, 48 women and 2 men. And finally, it was from the JCC in Cleveland. That's right. It came out to Brunswick. And I thought, well, what do we do? I did all sorts of things. Finally paired them off. And this one woman came after this little guy, and he was standing over in a corner, and she says, I'm dancing with you. He says, no, I can't dance. He was scared stiff. And she says, I'm dancing with you. And he says, I can't dance. She says, what's the matter? He says, I got a bone in my leg. And he says, oh, I'm sorry, and turned around and walked away. And, I felt both of mine, and by golly, I still to this day, I don't think she was listening too closely, but it did the trick for him. He came and danced a little later, but that's just one of those memories that I guess I will never forget. No, the ability to sell, I think, was one of the points that was made in our notes here. To start and maintain and to sell a community dance program, a limited program where if you're aware, what can you offer to people that want to dance? Because if you go into the retirement camps down in the south, our snowbirds all run down there, and you've got about like a cruise ship, And by the way, if any of you want any information on that or would like to get involved, I might be able to help you. I've gotten away from them, and I've helped them fetch callers get callers right out of almost where the ships leave, so they don't have to pay for their flights in. But just a quick story, and then I'll go on. I'm talking about cruise ships. 3 women standing by the railing. One of them looked over, the fellow sitting there in a deck chair. And went over, and he was kind of pale. She says, what's the matter? Are you seasick? He says, no, ma'am. Well, why do you ask? She said, well, we're all so nice and tan, and you're so peaked. And he said, well, you realize that on the cruise ships, about 80% of these are women and about 20% are men. And so I asked why he was so peaked, and he said, well, I just spent 9 years in prison. And the woman says, 9 years in prison for what? He says, I murdered my wife. She says, oh, then you're available? Don't laugh. Don't laugh. The aggressiveness of some people when they want to dance, why they all go to all extremes. But the opportunity to work that type of thing, and it's not easy work, but it's very profitable. Very profitable. These telephone solicitation things. Where's Jerry? Is he still in here? Health will tell you. I've used it many times. I owe this one to Jerry Helt. A woman called and said, Mr. Howell, yes, I'm from some dry basement company. I said, oh, goodness, I've been waiting for a call from you. Does your group ever square dance at all, or do you ever have square dance parties or anything of that sort, maybe holidays sometime? Well, no, we haven't even thought of that. And I said, well, I'd like to talk to you for a little bit about it. Now, I've only gotten one out of probably 100 calls like that. But, yeah, that sounds like it was a picnic, actually. It was an industrial picnic I got out of. But if you can catch those people and just talk to them in just a little bit, you might plant some seeds. Now, it sounds kind of crazy. I don't know whether Jerry uses this technique anymore or not, but every time we sit down at dinner, the phone rings, and somebody wants to sell you something, and just see if you can't maybe talk it, I guess is what I'm really saying. Talk it up constantly. Everywhere I go, I do Girl Scout and Dad flyers right in my packet. They're out there, and I pick them up constantly. I go to a dance club and pass them out, and pick up people to get them interested in just coming out and dancing. No obligation. You don't have to go for a year to learn how to dance. You come in, and what I have done in the past 30, 40 years, I guess now, maybe, is you just offer a program. I work through the recreation department in the various cities. I go to the recreation department and sell them a bill of goods if I can, and the fact that these people can come out and dance for 8 sessions, as we had talked. Sometimes, maybe in the fall, it can go 10 sessions. In the winter, generally, because it was a Monday night group, anyhow, only get about 7 or 8, because we have Martin Luther King Day, we have President's Day, and Monday night is not a very good night for classes, but we reduce it. Somebody said, well, how can you accomplish the same thing in 7 weeks that you do in 10 weeks? I said, it's very simple. You do the same thing almost that you did, but vary it just a little bit, so that these people can keep coming back. And I've had people coming back for years and years and years, just because they want to get out, they want to dance. When you talk about the mature element of our world, I'm not using aging again, old people, but consider morning or afternoon again, too. Because I know the line dance people have really fallen into this of using mornings. People will come out, but they don't want to drive at night, many of them. As a woman said, she was looking for a man, and somebody said, what do you want, one with money? She said, no. Good looking? No. She said, what do you want? She said, I want to find somebody that can drive at night. And don't laugh, but it's true. They want companionship, and this is a nice way to get out and just enjoy, as you well know. In fact, I'm telling you folks many things that maybe some of the folks on the tape may not know, that may be in other sessions. But to do what Cal has attempted, Cal and Ken primarily, is to put this into a package and try to sell a package. You sell it wherever you can. As I said, mine goes primarily through recreation departments, the package itself. The other, most of it comes out of one-night stands. Or, excuse me, I can't buy party dances. I can't. No, oh, you mean that the A2 bunch are not having fun? Don't you? Don't you? Yeah, no, I'll tell you. Last Friday night, I had a couple walk in with some trepidation. They're taking lessons. They're real good caller. They come in. They didn't know whether they could dance the stuff or not. And of course, it was April, and so I did Who's on First, and I did a half sachet and had them dance in the various other people's parts, and they were laughing to beat the band. I don't know whether they'll ever come back or not again, but I'm hoping that they will. So when you start, you got to avoid the word fun too. I think one of the worst talks I ever gave in my whole life was by a fellow that hired me to do this particular one. I can't even remember what it was, for one of the clubs, Kiwanis or something, and he said, Howl with Howell. And as I began my talk, they all let their glasses kind of creep down on their noses and go ahead, make me laugh. And humor is one of the toughest things in the world on timing and etc. to present. But it's really when they're expecting some hilarious stuff, why they aren't going to get it. Am I 6 minutes up yet? Did I use his 6? I got a couple of them. God love you. Yeah, classic country dancing. I like that term. I do. That's good. Manning Smith. How many of you knew Manning Smith? Manning Smith went down to the college station down there, and I talked to Manning. This is probably 15 years ago. Manning made a lot of money down there. 50 cents a head, Wednesday evening. Did you go to school down there? No. Oh, okay. Well, your daughter did, but, well, she's a little younger than this probably. Manning had put 100 people in that gymnasium every Wednesday night at 50 cents a head. And if that isn't community dance program, I don't know what is. It's just an ongoing type of thing where you don't have to learn anything. Or else if it is a quick teach, you do it. And if you get the bulk of your group doing it, it makes it even a quicker teach. Everybody, has to do the grand square. Well, if 90% of them, 80% of them know it, why, you can pull that stuff off, switch them around, take them away from their partner, and everybody does it. But Manning did this type of thing, and as I look about the room, I know most of you. I see these faces frequently, and you have been doing it. But how do you sell it? Where do you go to sell it? I sell it every place I can. Any church that I happen to get to, occasionally. Well, somebody said to me the other day, boy, they ain't going to love you in heaven. I said, I don't want to go to heaven. I want to be with all my friends. That's for sure. No, sell it. I talk it constantly. I have for a number of years. To give you an example, I have a CDP club. We never called it that before, but we have the last few years. And I found a program last year. I found a card. It was rather tattered at the corners, but it was dated March 1947. I took it out last year in 1997 and called the identical dance that night. And at the end of the evening, my students at Akron University will say, how do you know you had a satisfactory dance? I always say, if you come to 10:30 or 11 o'clock and everybody's standing around talking, you've had a good dance. If at 9:30 you've only got 2 sets on the floor, you better go home and do some homework. Well, these people, they just enjoyed it to no end. And I never told anybody, although the word got out. Finally, through somebody I mentioned it to, and this fellow said, I believe I was there in 1947. Well, if he was, he might have been there, because I've been doing the same thing in the same way for 50 years. And I never gave it a name. I was a little bit afraid of that. But it's the same thing, but we cut it a little differently. They even do the same dances to different music, as most of you people do, so that it's a little bit different. What about, where were some other things that I had here of selling them, trying to, colleges, universities. Tough to get into sometimes, but I tell you, you can make a bundle of money. You can make a lot of money through the universities. And if you want to be real dishonest, you don't even have to pay taxes on it. Is that on tape? No. Now, I give you one example of the best one I ever had. I made $4,000 in 9 days. You can't beat that with a stick. And when I went for my check, it was all there. And I said, but wait, aren't you taking anything out? No. I said, why not? They said, because you are not a staff member. You come under what we call a consultant. Whew. I loved it. Except that I'll tell you what, I slammed it into the books as fast as I could because I didn't want to forget that one. I knew I'd have a visitor somewhere along the line if I did. But you can, they do, school systems. And I know many of you do get within the school systems. And that's the same, I don't care how you slice it. Call it what you like. We are talking today about CDP as being a program that goes a segment of the time. And what do you do the second time around? Well, you slice it a little differently. What do you do the third time around? Because you have new people coming in the winter course. You have new people coming in the spring. In the fall, you'll see a whole bunch of your old friends back again, but there's some new people. But you don't worry about that. If you make everything a quick teach and teach as little as you possibly can, because the best teacher teaches least. Get you going, quick teach, bang, and away you go, and they're dancing to the music anyhow. So where do I sell it? I sell it wherever I possibly can. Thank you.
I don't believe this, Bob. You have 6 minutes left.
What? Folks, would you not stand up and join me? What a friend we have in Calvin.
Questions for Bob for 6 minutes.
Yona Chalk. I wanted to ask Bob, you said get into the colleges and university. What departments and how? Do you send them a flyer, a prospectus, a description of what you're doing? What do you do to get in?
I think it's a carryover from the old Lloyd Shaw days. Now, I was a member of Pappy's Force at one time when he was living, and got in on the initial foundation myself as to when it was being developed, and we as members of that foundation went out into the various schools. I spent 28 summers in Colorado, Fort Collins, and I even took my son that one time a T-shirt home, CSU, Colorado State University. He said, "What'd you bring that home for, Dad? I can go downtown and get one." Cleveland State University has the same shirts. Carried a doggone shirt home, and that was Colorado State University. Michigan, Beaver Island, Akron University, Bowling Green State University. Most of these, we got our foot in the door through the Lloyd Shaw Foundation. However, after a while, I guess I just branched out on my own and have been doing it on my own, or with some of the folks. I guess there's nobody in this room that I've worked with particularly, but have done it just. I got started there. Now, how do you get in? There's two departments. One is the physical education department, and the other one is the music department. And why do I say music department? Because for the last 3 or 4 years that I was at Central Michigan University, we had more music teachers in the class than we did physical education teachers. Too many jocks still open the door and kick the ball out, which I hate to say because I taught physical education for many, many years and it was my major. They're ex-jocks. They coach generally, and they don't want to get too tired because they have to work 3 or 4 hours after school coaching something else. Where the music teachers will get a hold of this material, and many of them will work along side by side in kind of a core curriculum thing. But music teachers, I have found, do more with dance than the physical education teachers do. Does that answer your question or not? I just I go to the various universities. I try to work in through people that I know, people that are in the Association of Health, Physical Education, Recreation, and Dance. Many of them come to me because of the writing, the books published, or the magazine that they'll see this material. Overseas, have been contacts through workshops that I've done here. One of the best ones I ever felt done was over in Switzerland, up at the Fusion, up above Lucerne. And my memory of that is after a whole day working with the 35 Swiss teachers, I wanted their picture. And I said, picture didn't mean a thing. Finally I said, photograph. And he said, photo. I got 35 of them across the stage with my wife sitting at the end. And got the camera adjusted in those days. Before I had an idiot camera, you have to get the everything set, ready to go. And I said, say sex. And 35 people started, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They started counting in German. Well, first thing I noticed was fellas fell off the end of the stage. Finally I said, no, cheese. Swiss cheese. And they smiled, and I got one of the nicest pictures you've ever seen. So these things kind of grow. If you can get one or two and you do have a good deal of success, they kind of mushroom, and you do get kind of a reputation. And I guess best, I don't advertise. I've never spent a nickel in my life, I think, other than running off copies of flyers. But I let everybody know that I am interested in working along with or playing with them. I don't work. I play for pay. Galvin.
Good. Amazing. He used up all but 1 minute. How can you understand that he could do that? We're preaching largely to the choir because, as I said, like Bob, I know a lot of you out here. My part of this is going to be to take a look at the very young end of the range down in elementary school. The CDP committee, as of today, has taken on the task of the training of party callers. One night stand, we're having a terrible time with nomenclature because one night stand has a different connotation these days. The area that I want to talk about is probably the kindergarten through about 4th or 5th grade, not the middle school. The middle school is basically an area that I haven't found anything that I can do with them. Yeah, right. But, this is 5, 6, 7, and 8, but, well, I guess really 6, 7, and 8. In middle school, they reject everything that you want to do with them. But from kindergarten all the way through 5th grade, you are in very fertile territory. A couple of things that have been happening in the last 5 or 6 years is the fact that the families of the people who are having the children within these age range are very much wanting to do activities with them. They are joining Girl Scouts, they're joining Boy Scouts, they're joining Campfire Girls, they're joining Indian Princesses, which is a YMCA subsidiary. And about once a year, they want to have a party with the children. The ideal activity for them to have as part of that party is a party dance, in which the fathers dance with the daughters. My job is to make the daughters look adoringly at the fathers, so the fathers are so enamored by this that they're going to bring them back next year. Okay, do you hear the message? My job is to entertain the dads, yes, but my big job is to entertain the daughters. And so what I do is to use dances that keep dad with daughter. I don't mix people up at these particular dances. A lot of the dads these days are showing up with 2 daughters. A lot of times in the single-parent families, the mother shows up with 2 daughters or 1 daughter. And so we do things that are essentially non-sectarian, as Bob said. In other words, we do things that don't require any sort of identification as to boy or girl. I do things in circles. This is the first place I start out, and for instance, I'll put them in a circle, and a lot of times there's 200 or 300 people in the hall, and I'm dealing in a big gym, so I put them in circles, and I say, circle up in circles. I don't care how many people, get 8 or 10 or 12 people in a circle. And then we do things in circle. You know what rip and snort is? One couple goes down the center, and they split, and they lead the line through an arch. If you haven't seen this, we'd be glad to put some people on the floor. But simple things, circle left, circle right, in the middle and back, all the girls to the middle and back, all the boys to the middle and back. One couple make an arch. Now the next couple go down and rip and snort. And the first thing I do is to show them. I work these days almost entirely from mini discs, and a remote that I can trip from the floor, and I can select tracks from the floor. I can start and stop it from the floor, and a wireless mic. And it's the most marvelous thing because I've cut the umbilical cord. If a circle is having trouble, I get in the middle of them, and we show them how to do it by taking hands and demonstrating what's going on. And it is marvelous because you can move around the floor from one end of the gymnasium to the other, and they don't care where you are. They listen to the voice. And so you have this, and you go get in the middle of the groups of people, and you get them going. So if you've got a particular area of the floor is having trouble, you go there. That's 300 records in something the size of a cigar box. I no longer pack 55 pounds worth of records. You're trying to stay mobile. The other thing is that in dealing with these kids, the kids will come up afterwards, and when I was packing 45 RPM records, the kids would come up and they kind of look at that and say, gee whiz, I never saw one of those in my life. Now they come up. Do you want to wait for a flip? Okay. We were talking about mini discs. Now they come up and they look at these things and they hang around and say, what are they? And they drag Dad up to see them. They are liking the dance because it relates to the things that they're familiar with and the things, frankly, that they are impressed about. Does it make sense? In other words, what you're doing is you're keying in to their things that they do within their lifestyle and the things that they enjoy. Campfire girls with the parents, or with father-daughter banquets, the thing I would recommend to you is you do things in terms of crowd control. If you were doing a mixer, for instance, where would you put the girls, on the inside or the outside, for crowd control? If you were doing something like Jiffy Mixer, you would probably put them on the inside, so that Dad's on the outside. So then you have a containment circle around these kids. They can do something. Now, the Jiffy Mixer, if you haven't done, is a kind of a heel-toe, side close to the right. Do the same thing to the left, and then something called a chug. You jump back on both feet, you chug, and you clap. You chug and you clap, you do this 4 times, and then you strut forward. I never use it as a mixer. I send them back to Daddy every time. Okay, does this make sense? So what I'm doing is I'm keeping them with the person they adore for the whole night of dancing as much as I can. In squares, I'm now into about 5th or 6th year that I've done the same party. And so I'm, sitting around saying, well, gosh, I can't do the same thing every year. I've got to have a few things. As Bob points out, you cut the pie a little bit different. And so I've started getting into some areas to where I'm trying to use my imagination as to what to do in a square. I can anchor Dad, right? I mean, he's going to be reasonably good about staying in place. I can put Dad as a leader if I can get his hand on daughter. And so we do things like chase the rabbit, chase the squirrel. Go around the man, go around the lady. Or out the window, in the door, and you have no idea what this means because this is something I invented to be something different than chase the rabbit, chase the squirrel. I tell them the door goes out between 2 people who are partners, and the window comes in someplace else. I make absolutely no attempt to try and make it a particular door or a particular window because I've found out that really doesn't work too good. Some of them are going to go out the door opposite, some are going to go out the door to the right, and some are going to go out the door to the left. You don't care. You're only dealing with one couple at a time. See? I love to do things with arches. Children love arches. They absolutely adore arches. You can have one couple go make an arch with Dad and go over the other 3 couples going around, and then him go around the other way. And they love it. They think it's the greatest thing in the world. They'll giggle and laugh all the way around the outside and then turn around and laugh hysterically all the way coming back. And you can make a whole dance out of these things, and you can do this year after year and invent these crazy little stupid things, and they'll love it. They'll come up and say, are we going to do that? I carry dances always. The ones that show up from the school teachers are the hokey pokey, the birdie dance, and you can, by the way, are you all aware that you can get the original Ray Anthony recordings of these now back to back? The 1954 recordings back to back of the hokey pokey and not hokey pokey, bunny hop, and the hokey pokey back to back. Yeah. I think it's on a different label. I can't remember the name of the label. He's going to look for it. We'll put it on the tape when we get it. But they'll always come up and ask for the birdie dance. In fact, I've had leaders come up and say, don't do the birdie dance this year. And I say, you better talk to the kids. Because invariably when you walk in the hall the second year or the third year, the children come up and say, are we going to do the birdie dance? Are we going to do the hokey pokey? No, they want to do these familiar things. And so you have them there, and these kind of become the dances that fill in between. Other groups that work out real good, Girl Scouts, Campfire Girls. Okay, Indian Princesses I've mentioned. Think about the fact that it is pretty well established at this point that by the time the child is 10 years old, they have established their recreational likes and dislikes for the rest of their life. This is why the football teams are having Pee Wee leagues in the first and second grade. Is because they can establish that as a recreation that these kids want to participate in later on in life. And they realize if they don't have them participating in that recreation at this point in time, that their chances of getting them at the high school level are far less. So if we want to have these children dance for the rest of their life, we've got the first 10 years of their life to get them interested in dancing. And the observation is that when I go into schools and I do things with the first, second, and third graders, and a lot of times, you know, you get all the classes in the school, and they're there in the middle of the gym, and you ask the kids to dance, that 99% of the kids will participate. I don't know, the rest of you do dances. Do you find this? That 99% of that age will participate? Okay. Someplace between there and the time they get married, they learn not to like dancing. But significantly all children love to dance. Someplace they get the message that dancing isn't cool. And what we need to do is to instill in them enough of a good memory about dancing that when they get to that period in life, and he's over here saying junior high, that when they get past it, they can return to the fold and say, yes, dancing is fun. And I think that's probably true. His statement is true as junior high, because I have my grandchildren who came around the other day, and they said, Grandpa, teach us how to do the swing. Y'all know what the swing is. I mean, we're not talking about the square dance swing. We're talking about the jitterbug swing with the turns. And, you know, two of my grandkids came to me and says, we want the swing. I taught them for about, 30 minutes. They returned the other night and he says, Grandpa, we've got about a half a dozen of our friends who would like to learn how to do the swing. You can bet I'm going to teach them. You know, I'm going to go out and grab that like a handful. I think this particular area for growth in community dancing is extremely important. One of the things that is happening to us in square dancing as you and I age, as we tend to isolate ourselves down to our friends and people who think and look and feel like we do. And oftentimes the thinking and looking, feeling extends to the fact that we don't want the screaming kids running around our ankles. And what we need to do is consider the fact that if we don't let them run around our ankles and get in the square and do simple little things like elephants playing and the simple children's dances with them, when they hit age 10, dancing won't be cool. And this is a new market that is very, very fallow, very, very large. I mean, there's almost an unlimited. And as Bob points out, it makes good money. It makes far more dollar-wise for me than calling mainstream square dancing, which is the other area that I participate in. I can always get at least double the fee for the night and probably quadruple the fee per hour for the night doing dances and parties like this than I can get calling mainstream dances. They're happy to pay it. There are grants for it. There's artist and resident fees for it, as Riona will tell you. You know, it's not a field where you're going to go in and not be able to get a return for what you're doing in terms of effort, that you are going to be able to pay the bills. And it's important to the future of our activity, tremendously important. It takes a personality type to be able to do this. If you're the type of individual that can't get out with kids who are about at your kneecaps to your hips and hold hands with them and be willing to get down on the floor to talk to them, and it's getting harder for me. I can get down fine. I have a tough time now getting up. But if you can't do this, then I would recommend to you that you leave it to the people who can. But if you can, and you love playing with your grandkids and throwing them up and running around in a circle with him, I would highly recommend that you probably love doing it with 40 or 50 kids out there in the middle of a gymnasium floor. Okay, one or two other areas that are going to get away from the elementary school aspect that are doing great. Bob's pointed out a couple, as well as he's been working with the Oasis. The other area that is very fallow at this point in time is almost any retirement center. What are you going to get? Mostly women. So you're going to have dances that are, once again, non-sectarian. Think about the idea that if you do this, you could, of course, say you're going to take the man's part and you're going to take the lady's part, but think of how much of square dancing we could do with designations like A or B or rabbits or squirrels that we use with a kid, or some adult term that would be acceptable to adults. Any sort of combination you want to come up with, you just change the choreography, terminology that you deliver to them. You don't do a ladies chain, you do something else. You don't do a right and left through, you do something else. But you accomplish the same sort of things. For people in this age group, there are the normal hobby dancers and the recreational dancers that we get in modern Western square dancing. But there's also a very large group of people that want dance routines to dance to. Do you understand the difference between what we do in square dancing and what a routine means? Is this something that is a foreign term to you? In other words, a dance routine is something that basically repeats over and over. Back in the old days, we used to do these as single couple dances. Number one couple went out to couple number two and did something. And then they went on to couple number three and did essentially the same thing, or maybe something a little different. And then they went on to couple number four and repeated what they did with couple number two. This is a good example of what we used to call visiting couple dances. It was a routine that once the people started into it, that they had a pretty good idea of what they were doing. This is why contra dancing is so popular. You can learn the dance, or you can learn the routine, and you can turn off your brain and quit listening to that dumb guy up there on the mic that keeps interrupting your enjoyment of the music. Now that for us sounds strange, because, man, we want to sing with the pearly tones, and we want them to hear that deep voice and that $400 mic that we split last week. What they want to do is get on the floor and relax and dance. Judy and I now dance with a group. Judy's knees are gone. That's my wife. Her knees are gone. And we can dance maybe once a month. That's about all her knees will stand. She can stand no jerking. No way can she stand anything that she can't anticipate and position her body to do. Does that make sense? I don't know. Some of you are, we're all going to get that point at some point in time. And so we've had to look for a dance group that is going to allow us to be in that sort of a situation. We picked out a dance group called by a gentleman by the name of Charlie Tuffield in Denver that's called Classical Squares. They do dance routines. And Charlie does everything from traditional dance all the way through A2. If it's a dance routine, he can do it. Every dance routine is maybe 64 beats along. And once you're into it, you know exactly where you're going to go next and who you're going to swing and who you're going to turn. That group has been dancing together for 30-some years with essentially the same contents of people. And he gets between 4 and 6 squares every night. Now that's pretty doggone good. It's a delight to dance with, and it's different than what we're doing in modern Western square dancing, but it has allowed Judy and I to dance together in an environment where we couldn't do so otherwise. Most of community dancing, if you think about the things we're doing, essentially fall into the same category. I've got 2 more minutes. Essentially fall into the same category from the standpoint that a great deal of the material, once the people are into it, they know what is coming. And it's not for everybody, but I have a gut feeling that it is probably for a great number of people will be a very satisfying way to enjoy an evening of dance. And what we need to do is to satisfy this segment of the population, and I think we will find it is very large. Any comment My major field in the last 10 years has been one-night stands. Before that, I tried to do it all. I tried to be a mainstream caller. I tried to be a plus caller. I tried to do all the things that callers typically do. And about 10 years ago, I basically said, it's time for Cal to slow down. For one thing, 5 years ago, I had a major heart attack. And I got to the stage where I said, well, I don't need to come home and get off an airplane for my job, crawl on, drive 100 to 150 miles to a dance, call the dance and come back home, and then leave Sunday again on another trip. And so I pulled it back to essentially one-night stands. And I concentrated in this area, and I tried to build up a market. It's great. I love it. It's a very lucrative market in terms of money. It's a very satisfying market. Now, Denver has around 2,200 dancers that dance in the environment all the way from mainstream through A2. Probably by myself, and I'm one of 5 callers in this market, I call for probably 4,000 to 5,000 different people every year. Multiply that by 5, and you come up with a figure of 25,000 people in Denver that do dance, square dancing, once a year, twice a year, maybe 3 times a year. Where is the recreation? Where is the largest part of the recreation? Where is it? Are we talking about numbers of people, or are we talking about frequency of dance? We have a traditional dance group. I'm going to swipe 1 minute. We have a group in the area called Friends of Traditional Dance that do largely contra dances, and it's live music. And it's the only show along the Front Range, which extends from Cheyenne to Pueblo in about 175 miles. But when they have a dance, they have 200 to 300 people at every dance. Consistently. Every time they have a dance, there's 200 or 300 people to every dance. Where is the dance population that are square dancing? We come to CALLERLAB, and we are a segmented part of a very large industry, most of which is not here. Does that make sense? And maybe what we need to do is to explore some of these areas and say to some of these other people, gee, I'm a square dancer too.
Sure. Thanks, Calvin. Very good. But I just want to get a couple licks in. I spent 33 years as a junior high school principal. And I do a whole batch of school camps. I forgot to mention that before. But if your kids go out to school camp, and they generally do in the 5th or 6th or 7th, I think those middle school is the most exciting part of life. I do, and I love it. Of course, maybe it's because I've lived with the animal for 33 years, and I know how to deal with them. But no, I certainly don't want you to overlook that segment of the dance world, because I've seen two things happen in the last 30 years. I've seen, and I see it more and more all the time, the sex line and color line have almost disappeared. It gives me a great deal of joy now. It used to be the boys, wouldn't touch the girls and wouldn't get near them, and I always, as Cal said, I always put the girls on the outside of the circle, because if I didn't and the boys were on the outside, they all headed for the john, and you couldn't catch them fast enough to. But if I got the girls on the outside, I know the boys would never make it because the girls had a hold of them. The color line has disappeared almost completely. Now, I worked diligently, and I have a very close friend who is black in the city of Cleveland, and she helped that. I was at East High School in Cleveland a week ago last Monday, and I probably were 1,200 kids in that school, and we just had a ball. But it took me 33 years to realize that I was a tom, and I was doing tom dancing. And I had to break that line. And finally, this lady was very dear to me because she did. She came out and said to the kids, look at Miss So-and-so. She got one of those crazy little dresses. Look at those red shoes. She says, quiet, get out here. Boom. I think I started with one set at 8. It was about 10 minutes to 8 in the morning, and by 2:30 in the afternoon, the teachers were opening their classes, and I had kids coming down from English classes and math classes and every class, the gymnasium. They're just coming in by the hundreds, and they were just enjoying themselves. One teacher came down and said, I got to get those kids back to class. They have a test tomorrow. And one of the other teachers says, forget it. Those kids aren't going to go back to class. But I don't do it that often. I go down one day a year, but the kids, now that was predominantly a black school, but I'm finding that in the suburban schools where the community is changing, that there is no longer any feeling at all as to who you join hands with. And as for boys and girls, I don't care particularly. I get them out there and I'll say, find a partner. Just reach out and touch somebody. I don't care whether they got a boy or a girl or 2 boys or 2 girls or anything else. In fact, immediately almost I put them into trios. And then the sex line completely disappears. But it has gotten so much better. It's better today than it's ever been, as far as I am concerned. And as for the middle school, Cal, I just got to defend myself there because somebody said one time, why don't you move up to the high school? And I said I would never move down to the high school because I always felt that I had a chance to change a kid a little bit in the junior high school. I always felt that when they got to the high school, the good got better and the bad got worse. But you could still influence them a little more. One other thing that Cal mentioned, too, about changing partners, and I think maybe Dr. Holder back there was there when the question was asked and when I got into it. Somebody asked, you ever call a dance where you don't use a mixer? And I said, I start every dance almost with a mixer. Or very quickly, other than with child and parent, as Cal said. But if it's adults, I do. And I fell right flat on my face. I tried to use mixers, and everybody walked off the floor. After the first 15 minutes, I had 2 people on the floor. Finally, I asked the lady, and I said, what is my problem? She says, this is a marriage encounter weekend, and we are here to be with our partner all weekend long. So when I'm asked the question, are there exceptions? Yes. If you get a marriage encounter weekend, don't separate the man and the lady. And let me close with just one quick one. This is the best one, and I think the kid was a sheer genius. I had 5th graders, 200 of them, 250 of them, in one of the elementary schools, and I got them into a circle, got them all around, and she asked me, she says, it's Valentine's this year, and I got an equal number of boys and girls, so I did. I watched them pretty closely and finally got them all marching around, Colonel Bogey and all that sort of stuff, got boy and girl. And I said, just for my benefit, would you just join hands so that I can see who your partner is? And there were the little boys pulling their sleeves down over their hands to touch the girls, and some of the girls going yucky and all that sort of stuff. But one couple would not do it. And I said, would you please? It took me a while to get the other 2 pair, I'm going to call them a pair, to join, to take their partner's hand. I said, get that hand. I need to know who you're with. That's in bad English. Hold them up. Bang. They wouldn't do it. Finally, this little girl, I said, honey, please, would you take his hand? She says, absolutely not. And I said, well, why not? She says, because he just licked him. I don't know why I didn't think of that when I was in the 4th or 5th grade. I wouldn't have joined hands with him. Isn't that wonderful?
One more shot. I've got some handouts here for any of you that might want one. It discusses a little bit of other stuff too, so you might want to read it. Not all the stuff I said was in that paper, so you're welcome to those. The Hokey Pokey is by Ray Anthony on Starline 6026.
Okay, we're open for questions, experience, comments. Please go to the mic, and we'll start proceeding from there. Okay.
She gave the mic to me. This is Dennis Leatherman, echoing what Bob said on the middle school. One thing that I have discovered, if I will clarify for the kids right off the bat, in community dancing, partner has nothing to do with who we like or what we like. It's got to do with who we got stuck with when the silly guy with the mic said, face your partner. And then I use one of two techniques. I either get the girls in one circle and the boys in another circle, and I force this boy to dance with this girl, or I do the old-fashioned grand march, boys on one side, girls on the other side. Because what you're running into in the middle school, they would like to hold hands with these girls, but they don't want anybody to think that that one is that one's girlfriend. So if you put them together, if they got together that way, it's strictly by accident. Thank you.
Thank you.
He's in command, though. That's the thing.
He's in command. Okay, maybe. Okay.
Mona Cannell. A variation of that is if you put the boys in a circle facing out and the girls in a circle facing in, have them both circles circle to the left, both circles circle to the right, stop, freeze, walk forward. That's your partner. Dance for 3 minutes. Do it again. They get a new partner. And by the time they've danced for 5 or 10 minutes, they understand that partner is not permanent, partner is not commitment, partner is just access to the dance. So they enjoy that. One other comment, you might want to look at a couple of new, I'm not going to say new, but a couple of religions, a couple of religious faiths that are beginning to be quite numerous and quite popular in this country. One of them is the Baha'i faith. They are an international group who believes in community service, and one of the things that they often will do is look around for somebody to do a dance for their congregation. Their idea of a sacred day is to hire someone to come and do a dance for them and give that dance to the community they're in as a gift. So look for that because they're international, they're very family-oriented, they're people who enjoy the kind of activity that we can provide for them.
I've called for Baha'i for a number of years, and they do have wonderful parties. They don't like complex choreography. They like everybody to stand with their arms around each other and sway from side to side. That's a perfect dance for them. Hope Chapel is another group of churches that are doing community family things. I have discovered in teaching in schools that if you tell kids to hold hands, quite often somewhere along the line the rumor got spread that if you hold hands with a boy you get pregnant. So I no longer say hold hands, I say hook fingers, and I demonstrate by hooking just the tips of the fingers. And then when they call something that involves pulling apart, if they start to lose the grip, they hold hands without being told.
That was you on a chalk. Next, other comments or questions? Sharing? Going around the room, I don't want you to feel the dead space is too long.
Larry Hoskinson. I don't know, I was in another committee meeting and I just got in here, but it's a point that maybe wasn't brought up. With a lot of children, sometimes if you have a group and they have a hard time with this holding hands bit, you can buy these boxes of plastic gloves like people use in handing out food and so forth and so on, and that works a lot of times. All you do is you just take the box and pass out gloves. Everybody puts gloves on, and you have nobody having any problem with touching hands.
That was not mentioned. Thank you.
It worked.
John Callahan, for me, rather than trying to separate the sexes, I just prefer to do dances with couple one go to couple two and make my choreography fit that type of thing.
Pairs. Headed to the back of the room for the people on the tape. We don't want too much dead time. Please give your name.
Bill Peterson. I came in a little late after a meeting also. I was a phys ed teacher for 30 years, elementary, which I taught dancing, and I want to interject just something, and I may be way out of line here. I've also got involved in country line dancing, and I found some of the same situations you are, that the kids at the elementary level did not want to associate with the other sex. And to me, and it's just dawned on me in the last year or so, that the line dancing bit is perfect. You don't identify with another sex at all. It's good exercise. And you don't have to depend upon a partner or anything. I'm not knocking square dancing by any way because I'm a square dance caller. But I think it's just a perfect situation. And I talked to a lot of teachers lately, phys ed teachers, who are now incorporating this, not only at the high school level, but you'd be surprised, little kids can eat up line dancing. You do the hustle, which is the basic thing. They'll eat that up in 2 minutes, and you better have a lot of material. You know how kids are. But it's my thinking now that the square dancing was always a problem because the kids, I don't want to touch her. I don't want to hold hands. And they do this, and, you know, they go through all the actions. The line dancing bit, well, it's not square dancing. It still is done individually. You know, you have less problems also because there's no proximity of one child to another. Remember, you're 4 feet away. What can you do? You can't reach out and poke someone, although they'll find a way, I'm sure. That's all I wanted to mention.
Okay, let's go back to Bob and then come forward to you, Yona.
Another source for the Hokey Pokey and the Bunny Hop are both on the same record. It's Collectibles 6001.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, back to Yona Chalk.
Yona Chalk. I have found when I'm introducing dancing to the kids that if I don't hook them in the first 30 seconds, I'm not going to get them. So I tell them that any dance activity that we're going to do is a physical activity, and like any physical activity, you have to warm up and cool down. And the warm-up dance that we're going to use is side, close, side, touch. Now the other way. Side, close, side, touch. Walk backwards. 1, 2, 3, touch, at which point my husband hits the tape recorder with the pre-cued electric slide, and I go, slap the floor and kick the moon and slide, slide, and they're up. And the change is so abrupt, they leap to their feet from having been sitting on the floor howling, electric slide. And after that, I can do anything I want with them, even make them hold hands.
Okay, other comments, please? People, I want to thank you for coming. I would like to have you, if you would, please give a good hand to George Rollow, to Bob Howell, all I have to get off of this is the numbers. I don't need the people. But I want to thank you very much for coming. As you fill out your slip for next year, I found out being on the board that what you put on your critique sheet is very important. I get to look at those things in terms of not individual comments, but in whether you liked or disliked this and want to see something like it next year. So if you would please be sure that you do fill out a critique sheet and turn it in. Mona?
Mona Cal, I would like to say one thing that may be out of line, but I think it's necessary. We need good representation on the Board of Governors of people who are interested in the community dance program and one-night stands and contra and traditional and all the things that enhance square dancing. So please, if you know someone who's running for the board who's interested, please, please sign up for them. Thank you.
And by the way, one of the things, we had a count this year on vote, and the vote that came back out of the ballots mailed out was 41%. Let's see if we can improve that this year. Exercise your right to vote. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you.